Okay, guess we'll start. Let me close this out. All right, so this is my second devlog for my game Sin Offering. I plan to keep this one shorter because I'm having issues with my internet provider. They're capping my upload speed, so just to avoid any problems with being able to upload it later on, I'm gonna try to move through this thing really quickly. So let me go. Let me show you what I've done in the last 2 weeks. I wasn't able to do that much specifically because stupid thing. I got stuck finishing up another project. I won't talk about it here, but I'll post the link to it in the description if you want to check it out. But I was able to do a couple things on the game, and I'll start with the first one. I posted this on Twitter. There we go. So, the original shader that I had wasn't cutting out. It wasn't casting the shadow correctly. It was just, if you would look at it before, it was just basically like a square for all the different sprites. It didn't really make any sense because I wanted it to cast realistically, so it creates the outline, the silhouette of the player and the enemies and the different objects in the scene. So in this video, it's just showing that the real-time shadow casting and the real-time lights work on the player. So it's able to cast shadows and receive shadows. The shadows, behave as realistic as it can on 3D objects. I think it looks pretty cool. It looks exactly like I wanted it. It works with the weapons and stuff. The thing that I found interesting, I'm not using my script for this. I'm not a person that can code shaders. And there's probably a better way to do this through shader graph, I'm assuming, but sorry, just got a phone call. Okay, but okay, but anyway, so it basically the sprites behave more realistically. And the other cool thing is I was able to figure out what the issue was where the sprite would render after the post-processing effects. So before there was this weird visual anomaly where I'm using depth of field for the objects for the background, and anytime my player sprite or any sprite was in the foreground of the depth of field, it would still blur out unless there was a mesh behind it. Now it doesn't do that. Now the depth of field is basically in the background where it belongs, and it behaves realistically, or like like a camera would basically. The only issues I have with this so far are that it's limited right now to only working, meaning like casting shadows. It only works with both directional and spotlights. For some reason it still emits light on the sprites with with a point light, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work with it doesn't cast shadows. So that's a limitation. It might affect the way that I have to light the scenes, but in terms of the desired look, it definitely is what I wanted. Which basically means that the only next real visual goal of mine is to be able to get volumetric lighting to work in the scenes and have it work with the sprites, basically God rays. I'm using the universal render pipeline, and I know that I don't think there's a volumetric volumetric lighting built into that. Um, Maybe in the high def render pipeline. I can't recall, but I know there's also tools that you can find in the asset marketplace. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. It looks like what I wanted it to look like. Um, but yeah, it would be really cool if the God rays were there and you can get like really nice rim lighting in the back, you know, and also like peering in through those church windows. But yeah, I mean, it looks pretty cool. I like it. So the next thing that I worked on, as you can see, was the melee combat, or I begun adding melee animations, uh, and I kind of got stuck in implementing it, not like for coding reasons, but I don't want to add more work. I'm basically trying to refine and just finish off what I already have in terms of my main game mechanics. And I didn't really, and this was my mistake, I didn't really think out how my melee system or my melee combat was going to work. At first, it was just, I just envisioned it being very, very rudimentary where I would use it as a way to fight off enemies with a basic hit, um, if while you don't have any mana or ammo to shoot or use your slash attack. But it, I don't think that would feel good from like a gameplay perspective. It would just feel kind of like just like it would lack depth, and I don't want it to feel like it's there just for the sake of you know, as a way as a crutch, you know, because it's just shooting. I kind of wanted to blend it in with a little bit of melee. So I was doing research into like different combat systems that I liked from from the inspirational games. Sorry, I can't even speak right now. I was looking at combat mechanics from games that I've basically been inspired by for this specific game, and then also looking at combat mechanics from other games. And I was really into the idea of having a light and heavy attack sort of combo system, but just thinking about the permutations of how many combos that could potentially happen if I went with a light and heavy combo system, not just it would just overburden me with the amount of work to do, especially considering my lack of resources in terms of creating um, different sprites, animation sprites for those actions. It just wouldn't be feasible. So I decided to just focus on borrow more from one of my original inspirations, which was the original Devil May Cry, and um, I was specifically thinking of the Sparta weapon from the original game. Let me bring up a video um, of the weapon. Hopefully this should... Okay, there we go. So um, the combo system in Devil May Cry is relatively simple from a control perspective. It's only one button, um, and uh, the thing that I liked about it, like I didn't use the Sparta weapon a lot in the first game because I think that it's one of those. It's like playing Luigi and like any of the 3D Mario games where it's like it's just like more of a challenge just because of how Luigi maneuvers differently. No. Okay, because of how Luigi maneuvers differently, it sort of creates its own challenge. And the challenge with the Sparta weapon in the original Devil May Cry was that it didn't allow you to use double trigger, so it was heavily melee focused. But the that's compensated by it being a huge damage dealer. But I like the way that I don't know why this is loading. I overall though I loved the way that weapon felt, And the basic combat, I mean, let me show you what I mean by the combo system being relatively simple. Um, Here we go. Yeah, I could just do this instead. Sorry, because I kind of want the video to play just in case you were watching. You can have something interesting to look at while this is going. But yeah, so you can see here, we got 1 combo, 2 combo, 3 combo, 4, and then 5. Or sorry, not combos, but hits. And the different attacks. Sorry, relatively simple. Circle, 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 gap, circle, 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 gap, circle. But the attacks, um, these type of combos won't be difficult to implement, and by limiting it to 4 or 5, like Devil May Cry is able to get like a decent variety without it being overbearing, like feeling like a fighting game, like a traditional fighting game. And it this lets me still have a decent amount of variation while letting the focus of the combat be on the shoulders of the weapons, the guns specifically. So yeah, but basically, I already have the different sprite animations borrowed from Soma's sprite sheet, and there's a couple different melee attacks in that, and I've already have 3 imported. Um, for the next devlog, I hope to basically have this basic combo system implemented, so that way, you know, you can get some interesting attacks, like a mid-air attack. A high time, I think that one you basically you thrust your sword up, so it'll launch the enemy up, and you can kind of juggle them with your weapons. But yeah, so let me close this out. But yeah, so that's where I was at with the melee system. Um, I hope to have more of that next time. It'll be pretty good. I think so, to see. The next thing. So one of the goals I had, but I didn't. I kind of got. I started doubting myself on whether I wanted to follow through with it. But I had mentioned that I wanted to focus on decoupling a lot of my code, my player controller stuff. Decouple my player controller from a lot of these other systems, like my save system, my game manager, the UI system, so that way I can just drop something into a scene and not have to worry about like reconnecting all these different systems in an empty scene. And I was researching a lot of stuff about scriptable objects because I'm using them now, but I'm not using them extensively, and there is a lot of like good uses for them. Just in terms of just like the way I'm referencing my weapons in particular and my inventory system. But I want to expand on it so that way it's not expand on it, but I want to be able to implement scriptable objects in terms of my other systems, my like UI system and game manager. But the reason I was doubting whether I wanted to continue with it or not, it seems like it's something that would be better for a bigger team that has designers on it, and if they need to test something out and they were, you know, playing around with, for example, enemies, or even um, maybe designing a weapon, it would make sense to have this sort of modular sort of component-based system using scriptable objects. But because it's just me working on the game, I kind of like have to sort of pick and choose in what ways am I going to use the scriptable objects before I kind of commit to doing all these different things. And then I realize, well, like this seems like something that could help someone else later on, but I'm working primarily by myself. So like, you know, I understand my code base, I understand like how these things are connected, and I think like for now, like I might just decouple the things that are like priority and that's specifically going to be the weapons and a lot of the player attribute data. And I'll I'll think about how I can decouple the game manager and the save system and the UI system afterwards, and any other things that I had in mind to sort of turn into a scriptable object, I'll put on a wish list and hope that maybe I could do it. But if it becomes like a real burden for me in terms of like, oh no, I need to have this thing, like a better way to handle this specific system or component, and it seems like it's important to basically implement it as a scriptable object, I'll do that. But for right now, I'm just going to focus on moving my weapon system into a scriptable object and my player attribute data. And then a couple weeks afterwards, I'm going to decouple these other the game manager and UI system as well. I mean, I know I'm going to turn the enemy manager into a scriptable object as well. But anyway, that's that part. So the last thing I want to talk about before I go too far, this Reddit user, oh no, what's wrong with my internet? This is what I mean. My internet provider has been not so great. Ah, crap. This sucks. All right, let me just look at my phone and I want to mention him by name. Shouldn't be here. I can't even put the YouTube video up. I'll probably just edit this afterwards real quick. Really sucks because I called them earlier in the week about my upload speed being crap, and after I called, like, for whatever reason, it started working again, and then it started crapping out again today, and now it's not just upload speed, it's download speeds. If you live in Los Angeles, try to move or you're planning to move to Los Angeles, move somewhere where you don't have to rely on Spectrum as your only ISP. Okay, his name is Unstructured. He asked, he's like, I'm quite curious though, how do you go about projecting the blood everywhere or using decal projectors? I've been trying to come up with something for a while, but everything is janky and I'm dropping frames. Well, I'll show, so Unstructured, I'll show you how I did it. I'm not using decals per se, but mine isn't that optimized either, but I don't know. Let me give you a little okay. Okay, so I'm not using decals. There's a couple things going on here. So first, it's the blood particles. The blood particles are the hit location for these blood particles are basically. Let me show you. I should. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what's going on here is the blood particles hit the player, and that hit location is given to these sprite mask. To these sprite mask, okay? And these sprite masks are being pulled, object pulled, when the scene starts. I think it's about 200 or 400 of them right now that I have out in total. Um, so what happens is once the one of these blood particles hits the player, the particle checks whether there's already been blood placed at that specific location. It's just a simple if condition, and if there hasn't, it'll send that location data over to one of the inactive blood sprite mask. Um, and I'll show you what that looks like. So it's basically just the outline of a blood splatter. I'm using this one temporarily, but you can see it's just a single sprite. These are my settings, but it then after it gets the location, then it's set as a child of my player game object, or if it, in the case if it was an enemy, that blood splatter would become a child object of an enemy entity if they were, if one of those blood particles touched them. But what that sprite mask, what it's doing is actually revealing the second sprite that's child of the main non-bloody version of the player sprite. So I have the setting on that bloody sprite set to visible inside mask. So when that sprite mask goes over it, it basically unveils this second bloody sprite. So when I click on that sprite mask, let's say if I move it around, you'll see what I mean. Oh, there's another one that's covering it up. Where can I go? Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so I grabbed all of them, and then boom. See what's going on there? So all these sprite masks are children of the player, and when it goes over, it basically reveals that bloody version of the player sprite, that child of the main non-bloody version of the sprite. I think you'd also, if I move it over to the enemies, you can also see it work on them as well. And during in the code, during that moment where the blood particle is hitting the player, and the blood splat mask object puller is called. It doesn't just set the location of the sprite mask, but it also just to make it varied, it'll change the rotation, change the size a little bit. Obviously, it's still unoptimized. I don't think I have the parameters that different right now. Like, so, it kind of looks the same. But, like, I need to fix whatever random number stuff I have going on in the background because it's not making it varied enough. But, just keep that in mind. That's what I'm doing with that. Let me show you the other. Here we go. So this is the regular non-bloody version of the sprite, and then one layer over that. So if this one's layer 3, one layer in front of it on order layer 4, I have this bloody one. So it's the same exact sprite. It works with the same sprite animations as the main sprite, so it can move and behave the same way that the non-bloody version does. I can bring that up how it looks like in the animator. There we go. As you can see. But Yeah, so it's basically just hidden um, right over it. Um, but I changed this mask interaction to visible inside mask, so that way it's only visible if it's inside any of these player or enemy objects like that. Oh, sorry, I paused it. There we go. In terms of optimization, um, it's it's pretty good right now, but the problem, like, I mean, I'm hitting 60 frames per second, but part of that can be due to like I don't have like a really amazing rig, but it's better than most. I'm running a 2070. I have an i7. I have about well, let me just bring up my computer settings. Actually, yeah, so these are my settings. So, it's not the best, but it's definitely, it's definitely like better than most people's computers. Um, and I think I'm running a 20, and I have a 2070 as a graphics card. But yeah, so in terms of optimization, I'm able to get 60 frames per second right now, but I'm like I haven't tested on a lower end machine yet, and things do get crazy. Like once like because I have physics set for where's that black line right there? Okay, let's see if this does it. There you go. I do have physics for the enemies when they get all cut up or blown up. And once those sprite particles start hitting it, like there's a real significant drop in the frame rate. Um, oh no, that's all. There we go. Um, let's see if I can bring up the. Completely forgot where the stats. It doesn't really show, but yeah, the frame rate starts kind of freaking out when the enemies are cut up. It could be just because of my code as well. It isn't really freaking out right now. It could be my code when I'm cutting up the enemies or when they're getting blown up that's causing most of the frame drops, but it seems like it's running okay right here. But yeah, if you're having any issues with it, I think that because what you're attempting to do with decals isn't much different from just using like sprite mask, like the way I am. I'm assuming that it might be that you're not using an object pooler, and if you are, I would suggest keep messing with your parameters. Right now, there's this issue where if there's more enemies and stuff, like you can it'll start removing the sprite mask too soon from other entities like the player or other enemies. So that's an issue that I've seen so far. So I want to make it so that I can have maybe another 50 or 100 of these sprite masks be accessible in the object pooler, and so that way that they can remain on the player and the enemies, and of course the weapons for some time longer. But right now, it's just a short period of time that they're basically on there. Um, yeah, and this is one of those things as well. Like I haven't messed with shader graph yet, and I feel like this could possibly be something that could be done better on there, but I would have to look into it. If somehow I manage to get this to work on like it gets to if this still works on lower end machines, um, then I might not change it. And if I could still keep my frame rate over 60 on some shitty some crappy hardware, then yeah, I don't know if there would be a real motive other than just the learning experience to move it over and implement it in shader graph. But yeah, I would if you're not using an object pooler for your decals, I would suggest looking into making one. The Unity or yeah, Unity has an object pooler tool or function in C Sharp. I haven't used it myself, but it seems like it handles a lot of the stuff that has a lot of the. Let me look it up. I haven't messed with it myself, but let me see. Oh, you know what? I don't even have internet right now, so I'm not even sure if I can. Yeah, I don't. Ah, crap! Stupid Spectrum. But yeah, I would look at the object pooler tool in C Sharp. It seems like I'm just gonna look it up on my phone real quick. Object pooler Unity. Yeah, it's relatively new. They just added it this year, I believe, or maybe just a few months ago. But um, yeah, so it's part of the Unity engine library. It seems like the documentation on their website is pretty good. So if you haven't made one yet, it seems like you can borrow their code or just look at their example to get it working with yours. Um, but yeah, this actually looks super thorough actually. I might because I haven't made a object pool for my enemy gibs and bullets yet, so I might actually use this instead. Because the one I have is kind of it's not using this library, so yeah. I mean, yeah, I would definitely suggest just looking at the um, using Unity Engine dot pool and using the tools there. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I'm hitting 60, but I can't say for sure that if that has to do with just like my CPU being pretty decent. So I won't know until I test it on the lower end machine. But otherwise, though, the object pooler definitely like it sort of lowers that overhead. So I'm not the game's not using up that much CPU when all that stuff is happening. All the blood is spraying. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, you can just let me know. You can just message me on Reddit or whatever, so I can help you out. Or you can let me know how you're doing it, because I mean, I was planning to use decals originally too, um, but I don't know. Like I think I forget what was the reason why I didn't end up doing that. But yeah, I mean, that's the way I did it. If you have any questions, again, just let me know. Try to help you out with that. And yeah, like speaking of which, I like the reason I want to do it on shader graph also is just because I feel like I might be able to do something cool with a specular map as well, just so the blood looks has some shininess to it, so it looks like it's liquid. So I might look into it actually now when I'm thinking about it, unless I can just make a different material with this specific blood sprite. Yeah. Anyway, I'm meandering now, but yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. I can definitely help you out with how I set it up on my end, just in case, and maybe even show you how my code looks. Otherwise, though, yeah, that's basically it. So for next time, I definitely want to, by my next devlog, I definitely want to have that basic combo melee system working. The other sprites should be in there by then. There's more sprites that I have to add for my main player, more sprite animations. They're basically in the sprite sheet already, but actually that was the other thing I did. Um, the yeah, like in my first video, the original Mega Man sprite that I was using was still appearing for the blood sprite, but I ended up redoing those sprites, the bloody version, so that's why so it looks all cool now. However, though, there's uh, that sprite editor is kind of, it's not cumbersome, but there's little things that I wish were there. I think stuff like being able to select multiple sprites, um, like after the, like, for example, let me bring this up. Okay, so the thing that sucks is that anytime I'm gonna have to re-import these sprites, because let's say, and I'm gonna want to do this just because um, right now the aiming animation is not bueno. Um, oh, camera, there we go. It's not bueno, so it's like I don't have any feet. I mean, my feet don't move, and that's unfortunate. So I'm gonna have to like it takes up a bunch of time, but I just don't like seeing it. It just doesn't look pretty. I know it's temp art, but it kind of just kills the believability of it. So take that. So I'll probably do a live stream, since I've never done that before, of just me making the aiming moving sprite. But to go to the thing that I don't like about the sprite editor is that when you re-import these, there's no way to have your naming conventions just automatically update to the new sprite sheet that you bring in. And that's kind of a hassle. So when I was bringing in the blood sprite sheet, like I had to literally go in there and manually, name all of them again. And that was kind of a little cumbersome not cumbersome, but it's tedious, I haven't looked into if there's like a tool that someone made that like makes that process a lot easier, because my concern is that I'm gonna have to redo this again twice more, just because I want to bring in that running animation when you're aiming, or that walking animation when you're aiming, and I'm gonna have to like rename all of them again, and probably have to like redo the different animators for them as well. Sorry, the different animation, have to set those animation clips up again as well. And the other thing is, and this is kind of like a minor thing, but let's say when you bring in a new sprite sheet and it's just one whole image, when you decide to go into the slicing tool, I don't like that when you do it. There we go. Let's say if I just wanted to recut the sprites, because reslice the sprites because I messed up the pivot point setting. I forgot to do it, or whatever, if I do it again, if I reslice it, I'm gonna lose the name references again, and that's a bummer, because that's like, again, it's tedious to have to redo that stuff. And the other issue is that this seems like it should just already be like doable, but if I didn't want to rename everything again, because I like the fastest way to set the pivot points would be just to have it here when you first slice up the sprites. It would be nice if Unity lets you like multiple select different like the different sprites, because right now it only lets you select one sprite at a time, and it would have been great to like click and drag over all the sprites and just set up the different pivot point. But instead, it's like you have to go in there manually and click every single one of them to change the pivot. And because like I have a very it's like I'm not it's, these are temp sprites, of course, but I'm not gonna be using all of them. But there's a good, there is a ton that I am doing, so it just feels like I'm redoing a lot of work. So it would be nice if there's a way that the naming convention could persist anytime you re-import that sprite sheet, and it would also be nice to multi-select the different sprites on the sprite sheet in the editor. Um, it would just make a lot of that it would make that process a lot faster and less tedious. But anyway, that's just a Unity issue, not so much game related. But yeah, but for anyway, so next time what I want is I want that melee combo system in there. I hope to have the aiming walking animation in there just so it doesn't bother me when I'm looking at it. There's little quirks with the aiming when it comes to rotating that I need to fix. I'm definitely going to move into decoupling that player attribute code and weapon code into separate scriptable objects so the data is being read in from there. Yeah, and then the other thing is basically start finishing off the secondary fire for the 4 different guns. I might do one weapon. I'm feeling I have to start with the dual pistol because that one's just the most jankiest right now, and it's like the one that I know exactly what I want for a secondary fire. So I'm gonna try to get that in there. But yeah, so decouple player attribute and weapon code. Get this animation sprite animation for aiming in there. Finish off the weapon combo system, and also get the secondary fire working for the dual pistol as a just start off. But I basically want to spend March and April just finishing off my core mechanics, and then afterwards I can basically move into I'm aiming towards I don't know, maybe let me look at my Trello. It's because it's like I don't like it sucks because when you're working on something like this, it's like when you fix something or you add something new, then 10 other problems sort of come up, and it's like you got to fix those. And I just I want to get into working in with on the main content, right? So the meat of the game, the different offerings essentially. Stupid internet, god damn you. All right, so I can't bring up my Trello board, but yeah, so I want to get into the main content by late March, early April, and have my core mechanics in there by the end of March. So that way, you can basically have these different match types. Even though they work right now, they're not fun. It's right now I feel like I'm still just trying to get the feel of the combat sort of fleshed out, and just sort of figuring out what works and what doesn't, and then before I kind of move into designing levels and enemy types, because I have ideas for different enemy types, but I just don't want to implement them right now until I feel like my main player controller is solid. And since my base systems are in there, I know that I can just be anytime I work on let's say when I finish my melee combo system, I know that that's already plugged into my upgrade system, so I can just have just finish that connection between them, including my weapon store. Once I have the secondary fires completed for my guns, I know that the weapon store is already set up to basically be ready to basically have those secondary fires available in the weapon store. So it's just it's just finalizing these things that I've already been working on before I move into the core gameplay experience. But I feel like the main game loop is basically in there. It's just rough right now, but I want the combat to feel good. So. And I feel like a lot of the tech art is almost there, but it's not priority right now. but a lot of that stuff is in there, and I think the look is evocative. You know, the monochromatic with just blood being the only visible color. I posted a video of this. Let me show you. Is it Oh, there we go. Sorry. Dummy. Okay. Missed it. But anyway, I posted this on Facebook and different websites, and I mean, it seemed like people really dug the art style. Oh yeah, this is what I meant with the shadows. See how earlier when I said it, like it was just like a square cutout of like the basic 2D sprite sheet, not like the exact, outline. But yeah, so I was able to get that resolved. Um, but yeah, so people really dug the art style, and I think that like I have the aesthetic going already, and I was able to get the core post processing tools to kind of give me my desired art direction. Um, I like at this point the only thing that I'm missing that I personally want to see is volumetric lighting, but I won't worry about that later on. But I feel a lot of like my core, like my art direction is basically kind of like it's very much narrowing down now and narrowing down so I can really just focus on the gameplay stuff, and then worry about that maybe sometime in the summer, refine it basically. But yeah, I mean, but people really dug it, so I think the aesthetic definitely is appealing. People like they like that it was violent. So I'm going to continue pushing on with that look. But either way, though, I won't worry about that till afterwards. Just want to get my gameplay in there. Maybe find some cool weapon sprites to replace the little crappy ones I made in Photoshop. But yeah, I mean, those are my goals. I might do these every 2 weeks. I feel like I'm able to get more done, and I have, I guess, more to show instead of just like having one or two things. But yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy. Yeah, I'll have my social media links posted underneath too. Just follow me if you like what you see. But yeah, anyway, thank you.